Josie mentioned, a lot of you may know me from my work speaking about supporting people living with dementia, but really it all began with culture change for me. As Josie mentioned, I've been involved in this movement for nearly 20 years. I first heard about the Eden Alternative in 1997 and quickly went through the process of going through the training in the following year, but have also been involved with the Pioneer Network, which began in Rochester, New York, and the first couple of national meetings, which were small gatherings at the time, were in Rochester, so I was able to attend those, and I've been to many Pioneer functions, and also worked with the Greenhouse Project, which is a small house model of care that puts people who have long-term care needs in small houses that are very deinstitutionalized in both the physical environment and the operations. And the work I've done with dementia, which is what I usually get asked to speak about, really comes from my understanding of culture change and my applying the principles of culture change to the care of people living with dementia and trying to see how we can see it differently. So it very much owes a lot of it to what I've learned about culture change. But I'm not going to talk about dementia today. This is the first talk of the day, so I'm going to stay up in the big picture framework and talk about some general concepts around leadership and culture change. Because culture change really does begin with leadership. And it's a bit of a paradox, you might say, because we talk about empowering people, we talk about empowering team members, empowering residents, but really it begins with the formal leadership. That is where culture change has to start. And that is important because formal leadership can make or break any kind of initiative. And until the formal leadership embraces and is on board with a new initiative, you can talk empowerment all you want, but nothing's really going to happen. So this is what I really want to focus on as we move through the day. And I'm sure we'll hear a lot of other people talking about how leadership was involved in their initiatives as well. So two big things I want to talk about today. These are what I call the drivers for culture change. One of them is wise leadership, and one of them is commitment to the journey. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about leadership, but also the idea that culture change is a journey. It's not a 10-step program where you check off the boxes and then you go on to some other flavor of the month. It's really about doing what we do differently. And Josie really set that up very nicely. And she talked about how sometimes what we call being person-centered isn't really that when you look at it in detail. I'll just open with a couple of quotes that I'll give you. One from my good friend Daniela Greenwood from Australia, who says that a lot of what we call person-centered care is simply bossing people around in a very individualized way. And I think that when you look at things, that really is often true. The second quote I'll give you is mine, and that is, I've often said that the biggest barrier to culture change is not, I don't like it. The biggest barrier is we're already doing it. And so I think we always need to realize that this is a continuous process of looking at what we're doing and finding new ways to do it. It doesn't stay still. Change is the only constant. And so we have to commit ourselves to being on a pathway to growth throughout. In the Eden Alternative, where I have a lot of information, there are 10 principles. And some of them, I think, have great relevance to all of you, regardless of what path you're on. And the 9th and 10th principles, or the 10th and 9th, really are around these two. And we consider them the umbrella principles that guide the whole process. So I'm going to stay in the big picture there. Josie talked about transformation. I'm going to give her that there is a fourth dimension here, which is societal transformation. We talked a lot about that yesterday. But within the organization, we often talk about 3 different aspects: the personal transformation, operational, and structural transformation.